Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
With just 2 rounds left to go, Diogo Pinto is in control of the INDYCAR Buttkicker iRacing Pro Series. But these next 2 races will challenge him in ways he could only dream about. The 2022 Porsche Esports Super Cup champion heads to America's legendary oval set on one thing, heading off to Nashville with a championship margin he can defend. And so welcome to the Milwaukee Mile and to a track steeped in INDYCAR history. Round 9 of the INDYCAR Buttkicker iRacing Pro Series is upon us. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, joined alongside by Kenneth Bueno, and ready to rock and roll once again. And Kenneth, this season has flown on by. Just 2 more races left, and the fan vote has brought us to Milwaukee finally. What are you expecting here tonight?
I'm expecting Arjuna either the great equalizer or the great differentiator in the championship, and in terms of who can still fight for the title come Nashville Super Speedway. We talked about how Laguna Seca, as the last road course race, could be the make or break round for a lot of drivers still searching for the title, but I'm expecting a lot of aggression tonight. Drivers going all over the place looking for that haymaker that could give them a shot or that could give them the championship lead at the end of tonight.
Absolutely, and so let's go back and take a look at what happened at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Really fascinating race, and all started with Pinto leading with aggression, starting on the alternate tires up front and starting to challenge initially down into the Andretti hairpin. He would make his way up into second before they even got up towards the corkscrew for the first time of asking. But out of turn 5, it was Phil Kraus getting involved in a major incident, and Dan Amor, look at that aerial moment for him.
He just took the skies there, a big crash involving many of the drivers, and as the field did thin out, Arjuna, we didn't even see the end of the chaos, right? So many guys on the alternate strategies, either diving for moves on the inside or making mistakes like Xavi Ros here, just sliding off the track and making those mistakes bleeding off the time. But as all of that was going on, Arjuna, Diogo Pinto showed us that he could dominate and dominate well, even when his teammates and all the guys in the mid-pack struggled to get by the competition.
It was really tough for some to pass, even with some of those split strategies. And so Phil Kraus showing his desperation, trying to pass Xavi Ros, gets tagged from behind by Tamas Shimon, just indicative of what was a bit of a torrid race at the end of the day for that private label Team Hype machine. Nice little slide there from Ricardo Rico to make his way up forward through the final corner. Flash back over to Kraus having another little battle with Xavi Ros, all as a slight charge in the late stages from Peter Berryman. Really interesting as he made his way on the alternate tires late in the race, a potential move of the day before final lap. It came unstuck for Phil Kraus, getting tangled up, an incident that's meant that he's got a qualifying ban for today Well, as Diogo Pinto at the front of the field just continued to pace the field, and for the first time this season, made his way into victory lane. And so it means, as we take a look at the schedule, where we've been and who has won already this season, Kenneth, let's not forget just 2 repeat winners, Eduardo Leo and Phil Kraus. Can anyone join them in that club with these 2 races left to go?
Well, with these 2 being very different ovals, and a flat track like Milwaukee and a high-speed concrete oval like Nashville Superspeedway, you may have the real chance, Arjuna, of getting different winners added to the list. But as we were talking about it for several weeks on end, these last 3 so important if you want the championship, because if you struggled on the road courses, you've got to execute on the ovals, and you've got 2 straight to give you the end of the season. And here are how the points stack up. Diogo Pinto, after the win, had been knocking on the door for a W this season, finally got it, and he extends his championship margin.
So he's not got quite a full race victory ahead of the rest of the field, but 50 points would start to make things rather uncomfortable, and will start to eliminate drivers from mathematical contention. Also eliminate a couple of drivers missing in action today, including the likes of Cooper Webster, who's out there at Macau, racing in the Macau Grand Prix, and a lot of the field cheering him on in that pursuit. But here today at the Wisconsin State Fair Park, Kenneth, talk us through this legendary track.
Well, this is the oldest track on the schedule. Opened back in 1903 as a dirt track that was paved in the mid-50s, but this has been an IndyCar staple for years on end. This track clocks in a little over a mile, about 1.63 kilometers. The banking in the corners, how close iRacing had to scan to it, they realized it was a 5-degree banking, not the more banking that they usually have on most databases. The 2.5 degrees on the front stretch that give you the run into the corners. It's a very flat track and a very rough surface, so we've already seen in practice several drivers hit the outside wall because they're hanging too much on the throttle. This track is all about discipline and being patient on the gas, because if you can do that, you can probably find yourself in a good place.
And do you want to control from the front? I think the answer to that question is yes. And so, Michele Costantini, the first time this season, will lead us from the front of the field. As we take a look at the starting grid presented by Buttkicker, can he put a season of disappointment behind him? He's got his former teammate Luke McEwen alongside to try and challenge, with Jordan Caruso and Dan Amor sharing row number 2. Florian Lebigra, the best of the red line drivers, lines up alongside Robert Malechka, who will try and grab his 2nd win on the ovals in the private label team hype entry. Michael Gianni, Ricardo Rico, they mean feisty behind them on row number 4. Sam Coiter and Tamas Shimon, they make up the rest of the top 10, with Jason Brophy finally getting the best qualifying performance of the season, really. Now can he try and deliver in the race itself? Xavi Rose will be alongside on row number 6, trying to put some of the struggles from last week behind him. Elliot Veyron, he got a podium at Indianapolis. Can he bounce back as well after some struggles in the last couple of weeks? He's got Jacob Oster, Eduardo Leo, and Diogo Pinto, all for company. Championship leaders buried deep in the field. Gustavo Ariel, Jose Soria make up row number 9, before back to the edge of the top 20. Jeff Drake and Brendan Lichtenberg make up those numbers. David Toth, Sota Muto, small margins splitting these drivers before you get down to Adam Crane, returning for the first time in quite a while after his honeymoon. He's got Jaden Munoz for company. UC Katia, Phil Kraus, and Josh Chin make up the rest of the drivers. As mentioned, Phil Kraus, a qualifying ban, Kenneth, has got it all to do from the very back. But what do we have in terms of our Buttkicker race analysis for this 120-lap race?
Well, we've got a little over 120 miles from the Milwaukee Mile, and the rules go the same way on this Buttkicker race analysis, Arjuna. It's an oval race, so we've got cautions like we've had the last several weeks with the other ovals in Gateway and Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We will have those single file restarts that will help the driver at the front of the field, but could impact the run to turn 1. Drivers still need to make that 1 pit stop through the race. We anticipate that these guys can go a little more than halfway, but can't go more than that. There are no tire set limits, and 45 miles per hour down pit road, that will mean a lot. We've seen plenty of oval races, Arjuna, come down to pit stops under green, so making sure you avoid getting a pit road speeding penalty, that could make or break a championship run tonight.
And I'm thinking for Phil Kraus as well, that pit strategy is going to be crucial. We saw that in some ways at the Worldwide Technology Raceway. A look at the weather conditions where relatively cool on the track, sub 100 degrees Fahrenheit, courtesy of the cloud cover that we've got above the track. But it's that wind that's going to concern, especially knowing the flat nature of this course. Any small gusts slightly going to unsettle the driver. Be on top of your car tools, the ARB, the weight jacker that you've got here on the ovals. We'll send the pace car off and away, and we're hoping we're not going to see it for 120 laps. The reality is, who knows? We're in for something here. Penultimate round of the INDYCAR Buttkicker iRacing Pro Series, and the points leader Diogo Pinto's buried back in the field, but his main rival Phil Kraus buried at the back of the field. Up front, Michele Costantini looking to put the season of disappointment behind him. Let's go at America's legendary oval, and already Commando working together. Jordan Caruso's got the jump on Luke McEwen. Out of turn 2 they go. Dan Amore's going to be challenged as well by Florian Lebigra, but a tidy start down to turn number 3.
Everyone's been good on the back straightaway. Remember, Dan Amore was the car that went flipping on the opening lap at Laguna Seca off turn 5, but he's able to hold on for 5th, and look at how the field fans out behind. There were 2 and 3 wide entering turn 4, and they were all over the place. Drivers searching for all of the position they can get, about 3 wide, further in the mid-pack, and Costantini says, bye-bye, I'm out of here. It's about half a second and more to the driver in P2.
Yeah, he's singing bye 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 right now. Not quite Deadpool dancing, at least just yet. This is the shuffling in the mid-pack where I think we're going to figure out high or low line what's going to work, but we don't even get really to the end of lap number 3 before we get a caution, and Phil Kraus gets tangled up in things. He's shot a part of the front wing. The rest of the car is still looking okay, but Kenneth, have the championship blows finally been brung to a halt for Phil Kraus.
And that could be the dagger for Kraus's hopes at an INDYCAR Buttkicker iRacing Pro Series Championship. And it's the 2nd week in a row to which we have a car take the skies. Adam Crane got hit by the pair of Williams Esports teammates in Jaden Munoz and Sotamuto and went up near the outside catch fence, but they catch Phil Kraus in it, who has severe front wing damage, and that may be it on the opening caution on lap 4.
And well, what did I say at the start of the race? Hoping we don't see the pace car. I just had to say something. Do you believe in the curse of the commentator? Let us know in the chat. Not expecting to see too many takers down to pit lane, given that, you know, tires are not likely to have done much in terms of add to the wear. We'll take a look at what happened, though. I mean, it's at the very back. It's really difficult to try and make a decision. Adam Crane turns one of the Williams cars, who gets turned into another, and I think, as Kenneth described, it's on the bounce back that Kraus gets involved. Let's ride with Javi Rose.
You'll see the 3 wide action is what creates the situation there off of turn 4, and Kraus had actually escaped the incident, swerved to the left to get away from it, didn't make contact initially, but it's the attempt to save the race car from unraveling out of control to where Kraus then kicks it to the right, and the car sails up to the outside wall, hence giving him some of that front wing damage that we noted. And that's a big problem when you get a ban like that in qualifying. After last week at Laguna Seca, you run the risk of finding yourself in an incident, even if you're that innocent bystander. So for Kraus, he's got a long road ahead of him if he wants to stay alive in the championship. He's got his car mostly fixed down pit road. Here's the look from further on back and how they all got collected off turn 4.
And so here's where you'll see as well, Kraus has locked it down. The benefit's going to be, it could be as simple as just a front wing change. He has come down to pit lane, and indeed it's a 15.8 second stop for him. So he's been able to swap that out as the lights go off on the pace car, so we're ready to go. It will be lap 7 when we get back underway. Kenneth, it's not over for Kraus by any means. He's coming back down to pit lane, I think, to top off on fuel. He's going to be trying to do something different on strategy now. He's got to still believe.
Yeah, but it means that the uphill battle just got a little more steeper, right? You look at even then the poor qualifying effort for the likes of Diogo Pinto and Eduardo Leo. That pales in comparison to what Kraus is facing now. He just came down pit road again with his teammate Joshua Chin. So at this point, he maybe didn't want to outstretch his hand to that wild alternate strategy this early in the race, but he's got to look to that back pocket, because now 6 laps in, all the way at the tail end of the field, it is not going to be easy.
So they'll go long, see what they can do on strategy. Up front, though, it's Coanda 1 and 2. Can Costantini and Caruso work together once again to control this restart? We're single file here at the Milwaukee Mile. It's a bit of a hold. You can see the field concertinaing for a second before they punch the throttle, go racing once again. Not going to see too many battles on the restarts themselves, it's going to be, though, once that speed builds, that intensity builds. You can see behind already some drivers starting to get caught out, but at the end of the day, Kenneth, everyone just trying to get back up to speed.
And at least get into somewhat of a rhythm. When you have a caution that early in the race, it slows you down, and obviously everyone's on the same playing field in that sense, but you don't have that chance to settle into the muscle memory that you can easily build on these road courses or the ovals, unlike the road courses that you have on the schedule, as Veron makes the move on Xavi Gross. That was the battle for P12, but you're also seeing how these guys are managing the lines at Milwaukee Mile. It's very different from some of the ovals that we've anticipated earlier in the calendar. You sort of have to arc the car up high. You got to find that apex in the middle and make sure the car doesn't wash up too high off of the outside banking and get into the outside wall. So you've got to be really careful in that sense as the battle for 7th heats up with Malechka up front in this group.
And we talked about Malechka at Gateway, remember, being one to watch long-term in terms of tire preservation. He's gone up high. That could be able to benefit him later. He's the one with the most experience on the ovals now inside of the top 10. Of course, the double iRacing Indy 500 champion from 2024. He's also got Jacob Oster up inside of the mix, though. Might be one to watch, who came so close to winning the 2022 iRacing Indy 500. Of course, Milwaukee's seen its fair share of IndyCar racing, but 2024 was the first time since 2015 that the IndyCars graced the track, and hopefully it will be a frequent fixture moving forward as well. It was interesting seeing some of the different lines, Connor Daly in particular trying something different, and there you can see something slightly different than Jacob Oster was maybe expecting, as up goes the inside for Elliot Veron, and very well executed.
That's going to be the ploy there, Arjuna, is get the car down low, find the car up high, and just slightly get in front of them. Slide up in front of the other car. By the time you exit the corner, it does scrub off a lot of speed, and we'll probably see as the run progresses under green, the tire wear start to really eliminate those types of moves because you're really squealing the right front tire, and at some point, that's going to reach a cliff, and you won't be able to make moves like that. But as you can early, guys like Janie and several others in the field want to arc down low and then escape up high just so they can give the dirty air to the traffic behind. And for Jacob Oster, I mean, we've seen glimmers of him at the oval tracks. A 5th place at Iowa, which up until now is still his best finish of this 2024 season. He's been looking to get back to that magical moment for Team I5G where they can find those finishes, and he's watching the Coanda machines go side by side up front. Veron seems to be on the move early.
Have been able to see, though, all this building as Costantini builds that advantage up front, so he's now 1.5 seconds clear. All of this fighting is great to see. 6 seconds off of the lead, less than 10 laps after the restart that we have seen. Phil Kraus is starting to move his way forward, though. He's up to 19th, and now on the back of Gustavo Ariel, and closing as well on Jose Soria and Eduardo Leo. And we mentioned this last week. Eduardo Leo and Gustavo Ariel are going to be racing at the New Orleans Motorsports Park this weekend for the Prodigy 3 Championship. And so they've actually had to go out and race on rigs that have been set up by Williams Esports, Kenneth. And I was talking with Eduardo very briefly. You can see a picture of the rigs there. He was saying that he was struggling a little bit, not necessarily the same rig that he's got at home. But this is the reality. He's second in the championship, and he's fighting to stay in contention.
And that is a big time difference when you go from your sim rig at home, where you know the ins and outs of it, going to a brand new location and a brand new rig to which you have to get used to in a very short amount of time. You don't have a lot of time to get used to the rig and get assimilated to it enough to where you can be as fast as you are in your sim rig. But it's impressive to see how good they've been early. Not the greatest qualifying effort for the pair of red line teammates, but they have at least settled where they are. And early on in the race with a brand new sim rig, that's kind of what matters. Just getting into your rhythm, not getting out of your comfort zone, and just finding that little mode, a little bit of a loose moment there for Gustavo Ariel, and Philip Kraus is catching up. That's for 18th.
Yeah, I was just watching the hands of Gustavo. Anytime they start wibble-wobbling, right, and you're seesawing at the wheel, that's not a good sign. We go back to actually look at what's happening. That's the 21 of Gustavo, still with Phil on the case, who's gone up high. Very similar to what we saw from Connor Daly earlier this year in the real world. Gustavo's right front rather has gone missing for a second, but don't worry, iRacing gods have smiled on him, and the car is okay for the time being as we work towards the end of lap number 20. Kraus is starting to work his way forward. Diogo Pinto's up to 12th position after qualifying down in 16th. So in terms of the championship, as Gustavo gets loose once again, it's still looking good for Pinto to consolidate his championship lead.
For Ariel there, though, he is struggling on his set of Firestone Firehawks, and exactly what I mentioned earlier is what's happening to Ariel. The right front tire is starting to dwindle and go away, so he's encountering the outside wall a lot more than he'd anticipate, while Kraus is doing a little better for himself. And when Diogo Pinto talked to us last week after winning the race in dominant fashion at Laguna Seca, he said, at this stage of the championship, a win is what I needed. It's what he's been looking for after a year of consistency, and so far he's been able to back his statements up and make a charge at the title. We know that there are still 2 races to where anything can happen for Pinto, but I'd say, Arjuna, that in his words, that Redline is just getting faster and they're improving a lot on the ovals. It's a good sign for Pinto if he wants to hold on to the championship lead.
One thing to note for today as Jacob Oster goes on the offense to the inside of Michael Gianni. Red highlight on the number board on the left side and also on the rear wing of the drivers' cars to highlight drivers still in championship contention. Top 12 enter the day with a mathematical chance. If it finishes as is, though, it will be down to the front 3 effectively. I think 4, Florian Lebigra would be mathematically in contention until we finish qualifying, at which point he would no longer be a mathematical contender. Diogo looks very, very comfortable, though, in terms of that point situation. We are starting to see a bit more chopping and changing through the field, though. You can see the alternate lines that people are running. They're almost 3 wide off of turn 4 as we sit on board with our championship leader. He'll look back to the inside of Michael Gianni.
We're seeing 2 different ideologies at play here, right? With Pinto, you're looking at the similar inside line, which a lot of people counter as the shortest way around the racetrack, the best line to run here at the Milwaukee Mile. But the counteract is that you will wear the right front tire by getting off the corner and getting into the gas too early. But when you look at a guy like Michael Gianni, he's trying to eliminate that right front situation. He's trying to arc the car a little earlier into the corner to where he can get out a little lower than usual and save a bit of that tire. It's not working for him in the battle against Pinto, but over the long run, and if we end up going past 35 or 40 laps under green, that middle line with a little more rotation and a bit more patience at the apex could be the line that you need to run, especially as the energy goes further into that bottom lane and it becomes more slick.
And I mentioned at the start of this race, you know, drivers need to be on top of the anti-roll bars, which those are at the front and rear of the car. You can both stiffen or soften, so induce a bit of more rotation or a little less rotation if that's what you're looking for. The other thing that you have is the weight jacker, which actually helps to, as the name suggests, move some weight around the car and really helps to, on these ovals, balance out the car over the course of the long run. And so maybe Jacob Oster, you know, we're watching him here with Pinto, maybe up high, he's got the weight jacker really dialed up. Pinto will have it a little bit lower in comparison. The great thing about oval racing, though, so many different ways to approach the challenge of the track, not all of them going to be equal. Pinto knocking at the door once again, Jacob continues to hold it off.
And there are 2 very different things you can do with that weight jacker on an oval with this car. Is that, number 1, you can try to limit the amount of tire wear you experience, which everyone wants to do that. They want to have the greatest tire life for the end of the run, but what you can also do is even out your tire wear. If, let's say, the car's a little too tight, you're wearing down the right front more than you would the rest of the tires, you can change the weight jacker to maybe add a little more wear to the right rear, maybe balance that out a little bit in the race car. And while obviously everyone doesn't want tire wear at its extreme over the run, if you can balance it out, you have an overall balanced race car, and that could play into the open setups that these teams have been working so hard at ever since they found out that Milwaukee won the fan vote. 2 very different looks from Oster, who's had a struggle of a season, to Pinto, who's been the championship leader for the last week or so. This battle, though, continues. It's wonderful out of turn 4.
Yeah, and Jacob probably enjoying now the fact that we've only got 2 more ovals to think about. Doesn't have to prepare and focus on the road course races. Much more in his element on these speedways at the end of the day. But for Diogo, it's been very impressive the way that both he and Redline have just continued to adapt to the challenge of the oval. It's not like we've been going to a Michigan or an auto club where the driving is relatively simple and the difference between the driver ends up being racecraft more than the ability to drive the car around the track. this is very much one where they are having to fight. And look at Sam Coiter right on the back of Rob Malechka, who has not really been able to close up on Michele Costantini. We are closing in on around 30 laps complete since the restart. And that private label team hype car under fire. Here comes the Dutch driver to the inside once again, but the high line rolls the speed and holds on once more.
You get inches away from that outside wall, but Malechka lights the line. He can carry the momentum off the corner and pinch Kuiter down to force him to use less throttle. It's almost a similar approach that you can have a bit at Gateway, which is almost similar to this track, albeit it has, this one has less banking than Worldwide Technology Raceway does, but for the most part, you can employ that pinch-off strategy at the exit of the corner. That's what's leaving Malechka with this amount of room to Sam Kuiter, who I tell you is probably looking for a way better finish on the ovals than he did the last time we were on one. At Gateway, he finished 21st and only has one top 10 finish on an oval this season. That was at the Brickyard, Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So Kuiter, who has been back and forth, more in the role of helping his teammates at Redline succeed in their championship pursuit, having a good race right now.
A bit further back, we check in with a driver who in the last handful of weeks has really been showing us his fighting spirit, Ricardo Rico, battling with Elliot Veyron. Number 19 moves its way forward for the time being. However, they do have that battle between Jacob Oster and Diogo Pinto that's been slowly closing on them as well. We are starting to see, I think, the long-term trends halfway through the fuel window effectively. Who's built a car for the long run? Who's built a car for the short run? One thing that does benefit these teams, these drivers as well, Kenneth, we talked about it at the top with our iRacing weather report. Cool weather conditions make it less impactful on the tires.
And they do. When you have the cooler track temperatures, you're going to have a lot more grip that is available out there on the surface. And while this track isn't as hot as it can be, it's still at a 102 degree temperature overall. So you're looking at a pretty cooking track temperature to where the tires probably will be, hurt a little more over the course of the run, but it is better than what these guys probably anticipated with all of the cloud cover that we're seeing in this sim. Two different drivers that are right next to each other in the point standings, by the way. You're looking at the left side of your screen, Arjuna, and you see all of the drivers highlighted in red. All of them have the chance to get a championship. They're within at least 98 points that they can get over the next two races from tonight in Nashville Superspeedway. Ricardo Rico and Elliot Veyron are sitting right outside of that, 13th and 14th. So no chance of the title for them, but they'd at least want to get a top 10 in the standings out of that. And with the less volatility in swing of position that we have, it gets really competitive around the mid-pack. So this will be a great battle we'll watch all night long.
Championship prizes paid out all the way down to 15th, and those inside of the top 12 in points at the end of the season retain their eligibility for 2025 and don't have to go through the grind. That is the qualifying series. It's a real gauntlet at the end of the day to be part of the fastest 33 in this Dallara IR18. Yeah, next week the names in red are going to be much more diminished in terms of numbers. Okay, it could be 3, could be 4, depending on how the points play out, how far up the field Diogo Pinto is able to get. Xavi Rose, Tamas Shimon, Michael Gianni. This is the race for 12th position. As they rumble down the back straightaway, there's the lunge to the inside. Tamas Shimon, the Hungarian, trying to show himself to the inside. Xavi Rose able to hold on. Xavi Rose has been rolling that high line very well so far this race, been keeping an eye on the black 04.
But now he's going down to the inside a bit. He's been trying to defend a little bit there as Shimon dials up the inside off of turn 2. This great three-way battle here for 12 continues on. And for Shimon there, he wants a rebound from last week at Laguna Seca, where he tangled with Philip Kraus at the entry of the corkscrew, hard on the brakes, and he just barely got into the rear wing of Kraus. Got his front wing a little bit destroyed, so he came down pit road in order to fix that. But Tamas is looking for a better run tonight, and he's building up this run on Rose, who seems to be bleeding off a little more time on that higher line than he would anticipate. But in that background is the purple number 99 of Philip Kraus, who hasn't made any much ground since getting involved in that opening incident of the race. He's been mired back in 16th, but as they continue to battle Arjuna, this is the place to where Kraus can make his money in the mid-pack and get himself a better placement by the time we get to green flag stops, if we get there.
I think what we're seeing right now, though, is that the deeper in the field, the more dirty air there is, the more traffic, just slower. They're running 3, maybe 4 tenths on occasion slower per lap compared to your race leader deeper in the field. And so single file for the most part now up front between Michele Costantini, Jordan Caruso, and even Luke McEwen in that Apex Racing team number 98, who has started to close the gap on Jordan Caruso here, and really flying the flag today for the Apex Racing team. Peter Berryman is sick, so he's not with us, unfortunately, today, hoping he feels a little bit better and can join us for the season finale. Also not here, Brandon Trainer, who of course missed the first round of the season, has missed a couple of rounds of the season. Well, why? Because he's been pitting for Ty Majeski on his race to the NASCAR Truck Series Championship. And there's Brandon Trainer picture with the trophy this past weekend, NASCAR Championship weekend. If there's any excuse, Kenneth, for not being here with us, I guess it's okay. Brandon's still celebrating, I guess, the win this weekend.
Hey, sorry I can't make it. I just won a Truck Series championship. I mean, that's a good excuse to give anyone, let alone this series. But great for Brandon Traino. Awesome for Apex Racing to have Traino succeed there in the real world. And for Luke McEwen here, I mean, a driver who's been rather successful this season, has won a race already. That came at Barber Motorsports Park earlier in the campaign, and is just now getting back into a rhythm at a top 10 at Laguna Seca as we get another look back at this battle in the mid-pack. It's starting to heat up again. Xavi Ross gets the touch off turn forward. It's a multi-car accident. Phil Kraus gets around, but Thomas Simone goes end over end, and it's our second caution of the race at lap 50.
That one was building as well. 3 wide into the corner was never going to work out. And unfortunately, small bit of contact is what sent Xavi Rose into Michael Johnny. Johnny just sitting there on the outside, innocent bystander. And Thomas Simone, a little bit aggressive maybe, very similar to what we saw with Adam Crane and the pair of Williams esports drivers, Sotomuto and Jaden Munoz, slightly earlier in the race. But this is key. Why? Because we are around 70 laps away from the end of this race, and now fuel strategy might just have been taken out of the equation. Should see the field in its entirety down to pit lane this time by, and led by the dominant race leader to this point, Michele Costantini. Behind him, Caruso, McEwen, Labigra, Amor, and Malechka. As we take a look at the replay, as said, 3 wide, small touch. Michael Johnny on the outside, the innocent bystander. And Kenneth, this time, Phil Kraus gets through safely.
He finally splits the Red Seas here. He's at the back of this, and it's 3 wide off turn 4, but in reality, it's a faint 3 wide. It doesn't feel like you're exactly 3 abreast off the corner, and that's, I think, what Thomas Simone could not really see, and he just barely gets a shot into Xavi Ross there off of turn 4, and that's what gets the Spaniard all out of shape and gets the Coanda cars involved. And for Simone there, who just bangs against the inside wall, he goes flipping end over end. Second race in a row to which we've had a car take the air already. And for Simone, that's his race over here tonight from Milwaukee. But what's interesting about this strategy call is that, don't look now, these guys are on the edge of the fuel window. Maybe not confirmed that they can make it all the way to lap 120. And here come the red line cars in this time by. It may not be a full confirmation that they can get to the checkered flag. It's going to get right on the window as they're saving fuel under pacing now.
Well, we've got a couple of minutes under caution here just to figure out what's going on. If you want to quickly try and take a look at more about the series, the INDYCAR Buttkicker iRacing Pro Series, head on to iracing.com/INDYCAR-esports today. We've got one more round of the championship next Thursday at the Nashville Super Speedway. And then after that, we will be building to 2025. And that means, well, if you want to learn about iRacing, how you can start your career, every day is race day, head on to iracing.com. And there has never been a better time to do so. New memberships are 50% off. Renewals for both active and expired subscriptions are 25% off 1 and 2 year subscriptions. I did my 2-year subscription right before we went live last week from Laguna Seca. As ever, Black Friday, the best time to enjoy iRacing or to gift iRacing to one of your friends and family. The sale goes on through December 2nd. Plenty of time to get involved. Kenneth, when did you join iRacing? How many years have you been taking advantage of the Black Friday special?
Well, look, I have an interesting story. Number one, I started back in 2014, so tunnel secrets. I was not old enough to have iRacing at the time, but I did have iRacing, right? And I tried it for a couple months. I was bad at it. I quit. And then fast forward 2019, That's when I got back into iRacing, and then 2020, as the pandemic kicked in, that's when I really started diving into the commentary side of it and iRacing in general. But it's been great having the Black Friday discount for 50% off. I use it at the end of every single year, and it saves me a lot of money, especially when you use iRacing a lot. So for all sim racers, it's a great deal at this time of year, and it's a great gift. It's holiday season.
Exactly. Give the gift of iRacing. I think that's the slogan. iRacing marketing department can take it straight from the commentary booth. Anyway, pace car off and again once again. We've had a couple of these interruptions. This is the one that has thrown the strategy out the door. We now have a sprint to the end. If drivers want to come back down to pit lane, it's for Firestone tires. This time Costantini's not hanging around. Let's go once more from Milwaukee. Could be as little as 25 more minutes of racing. The field is also down to 19 cars left on the lead lap. We are starting to lose numbers. Traffic not maybe going to be much of a consideration. Looked like one driver got balked. Could have been Jacob Oster. He's down to 13th already.
And he has some right front wing damage in turn. The contact with the Ricardo Rico in the middle of turns 1 and 2 is what got him out of shape, so he may have to pit, and his race, at least if this one stays under green, could be in jeopardy. We're almost 3 wide. Malechka trying to hang on to P6 as Veyron dials up the inside, fakes it out, and it's almost 3 wide at the entry of turn 3. Kreitzer trying to punch his way into the top 6.
Behind them as well, you've got 2 championship contenders lurking close together. We did note in that previous incident, Eduardo Leo got tangled up. He's 1 lap down. Phil Kraus is challenging Diogo Pinto just inside of the edge of the top 10. They've got Ricardo Rico, Sam Coitet in front of them, going wheel to wheel. Phil Kraus has gone to the outside. He's looking to try and sweep his way past the Portuguese driver. Can't quite look to the inside down to turn number 1, but this could be pivotal. This could be a statement for Pinto to hold off the challenge as Kraus rips the high line once more.
Kraus came into this race 43 points back of the points leader Diogo Pinto, and as Pinto was getting stuck back in traffic, Kraus has been able to get the run off the corner, and he's got the switchback to the inside for P10. Caution flag waves though, and there's trouble behind. It's the private label Team Hype teammate Josh Chin, torn up at lap 59.
And well, I thought Kraus was about to get the move made, but literally half a second later, and he might just have been waved on through by the iRacing race control system instead. He's going to have to try and dig that move out of his arsenal once again. In many ways, though, this will help the drivers to preserve the life of the tires a little bit more. That rear wing is a sorry sight on the private label Team Hype number 93. Josh Chin, of course, 2nd place last time we went racing on the speedways at the Worldwide Technology Raceway. Definitely not going to replicate that success this time around. We'll take a look at the replay in a few moments' time and figure out exactly how that all unfolded. But if you're just joining us, Adam Crane, Jaden Munoz, and Sota Muto, that was caution number 1. Thomas Shimon, Michael Johnny, Javi Rose, Eduardo Leo, that was caution number 2 effectively. And now Joshua Chin involved in what is caution number 3, right as we reach the halfway point of this race, Kenneth.
And it was in an entanglement with Drago Racing's David Toth. And as we dial up the replay, we'll get a better look at how it all unfolded. This is the battle for 16th, right? Side by side going into 3 and 4. A little high up goes Toth, who had an average finish of 3.5 over the last 2. Just a bit of a hit check there to Chin, and that's enough to send him out of shape. I mean, this track doesn't have a lot of banking, but it is a pretty rough track surface. So if you get a bit of contact, those rear tires and the yaw is enough to send you spinning. And that's at the angle to where Chin just goes backing up into the outside wall and does get a bit of front wing damage as well. So for Chin there, who was hanging on and hasn't had the greatest of seasons, this one will not do him any better here in round 9.
Mentioned it slightly earlier, championship prize pool goes all the way down to 15th, but they're fighting for their share of $50,000. Diogo Pinto right now has got the check provisionally with his name written down for $20,000. Do we need to get the eraser out, or will that check be mailed off to Portugal? $12,000 for second is nothing to sniff at as well. And again, down to 15th. At least there is something for all of these drivers to be fighting for. So, as we get ready to go in these final 60 laps of the race, 114 laps from Nashville as well next week. We're into these closing stages of the championship. You know exactly what they're fighting for. And one more driver who's not here today, we mentioned it briefly when we were rolling through the starting grid, But Cooper Webster, Kenneth, the driver at one point that was leading the championship, has missed a couple of rounds. Why? Because he's racing this weekend at the Macau Grand Prix. And so this is actually going to mean for Cooper, he is going to, I think, drop outside of the top 12 in points. However, let's be real, he has been given a monumental opportunity, and as much as we would have loved to see him, we're watching on from the sidelines and cheering him on as well.
Yeah, we're wishing the best of luck to Cooper Webster and his endeavors for the real life. I think it's always great as an excuse to miss an iRacing race if you're out there racing in the real world, and that's the goal of the sim, right? Is to get the top sim racers in the world, give them a shot at racing real life race cars, and more often than not, they do a whale of a job behind the wheel of a real race car. Plenty of stories we've seen from the racing side of things, but he is close to getting bumped out of the prize money. And for Webster in a quick championship, became one of the titans and all of a sudden fell down back to earth, and we're in this conversation now about his teammate Pinto potentially getting the title if he can hang on. But great for Webster there, but we'll see what happens with the rest of the title contenders, because we know with David Toth being involved in this incident, technically it'll back him up a little bit inside the top 15, and that is a pretty competitive area for the prize money.
And don't quote me on this, because never trust a commentator's math. If this finishes as it is, I don't want to say Diogo Pinto has wrapped up the championship, but remember, you get 5 points for just starting the race. That's all you need to do. Start the race and you get 5 points. We are so close to Diogo Pinto getting to 49 points, the magic number at which point it's done. We don't care what happens at Nashville. We've still got 57 laps to go, though, here at the Milwaukee Mile. What is going to happen? Pinto and Kraus, 10th and 11th. Up front, Costantini once more punches the throttle, and we're racing once again. Keep an eye out on Dan Amor, who's been quietly just sitting there in 5th position and biding his time, maybe looking to try and go on the offense at some point. Behind him, Malechka's been unable to make any inroads as well. Single file down to turn 3.
And there is pressure in the background. Diogo Pinto is looking under the Drago Racing entry of Ricardo Rico. That's for 9th place. And remember, Kraus was right on the rear wing of Pinto in the last several corners prior to the caution. They were side by side. If Pinto can make this pass, it gives him a bit more of a buffer in the point standings and on raw track position. But the longer he stays on the inside is the longer that Kraus can pick up the pace. They're still side by side for P9.
And again, 49, the magic number. Though, one thing that Pinto cannot afford, Captain Consistent, can't get involved in an incident and sit down in pit lane. Phil Kraus, though, will take it 3 wide as they run off of turn 2. Has to now cut back to the inside and run his way to turn 3 with a championship potentially on the line. It's Pinto that backs out. He knows he has to. Kraus is going to shrink the deficit to 40 points. He's got 54 laps with which to play to try and get to the front and to try and keep the championship hopes alive going into Nashville.
He may not take the championship lead outright by any means necessary after this race, Arjuna, but if he's got a fighting chance, it means he can do something. But Pinto goes to the inside, and there's contact. Kraus gets into Rico, who slams into the wall and gets several others involved. Jason Brophy, the secondary car, and that's another yellow flag, this time at the hands of Philip Kraus and Ricardo Rico, who tangle in turn 4.
Now, I would love to see that again, because what was it that I was mentioning to you before we started, Kenneth? The last thing that either Pinto or Kraus wants to do, A, get tangled up in an incident for the obvious reason, but B, have to visit race control. I'm very curious to see exactly what the replay will show us, because I was looking down at my timing screen and missed exactly the point of contact. Is it going to be Kraus or Pinto that's going to be reporting to the steward's room and potentially facing a qualifying ban for next week like Kraus had here today, or maybe even worse, a points penalty?
You know, there were 2 things happening simultaneously in that moment where Kraus makes contact with Rico, and we'll see if we can get a better look at how it all transpired. But as Pinto makes the move on the inside, he'll go 3 wide here off the back straightaway. Kraus can see that in the mirror. He's anticipating that Pinto's down there. He's giving Pinto the proverbial space, but as Rico probably can't see that Pinto's down there, he's got his normal line, which is running in that tertiary groove and then cutting a little down just so he can keep that momentum up off of turn 4. So that's when the contact ensues between Kraus and Rico. Rico is just trying to save the car, but at the pace he's going, it's an easy overcorrect to make, and he goes slamming into the wall. Jason Brophy there with nowhere to go, and David Toth, the teammate, A bittersweet moment. He gets by the incident, but watches his teammate get destroyed off of turn 3.
And so I guess it's difficult to try and understand, right, what every driver's thinking that the other drivers are going to do in that situation. Because it seems as though Ricardo Rico was thinking Phil Krause is going to be maybe a lane or two lower, but Phil Krause is giving space for Diogo Pinto, right? So maybe Rico's not even aware of the threat of Pinto and the red line machine. Reality is, though, we slow things down one more time. I've got to say, this has been the race in which the team at Dallara having to repair a decent amount of bodywork and whatnot, and if you're in the market for used IndyCar parts, like I tend to be as well, a pretty decent market at the end of this race. All this carnage behind, and we haven't talked much up front about Michele Costantini, Kenneth. Let's be honest, the season of misery for the most part across of 2024, puts it on pole to start this race off, and it's good we haven't talked about him so far because he's been staying out of trouble.
Yeah, we're escaping the commentator's jinx, and I hope that it doesn't happen for the next 51 laps, give or take, until the checkered flag. But Costantini has really ramped things up over the last several races. The first 4, he could not find a finish, you know, inside the top 10, or at least inside the top 5. And then for the last 4, 3 of them are top 10 finishes. So it's been good for him. And we'll note that Black Friday is coming up again through December 2nd. Arjuna, I'd say that if you're Costantini, he wants to reap the rewards of this race. Maybe he can renew his iRacing membership if he hasn't done so already.
iRacing.com, Black Friday, the link to learn a little bit more. New memberships 50% off. Never been a better time to jump into the world of iRacing. I'm going to put you on the spot here, Kenneth. We've got 49 to go at the line. How many more cautions do you think we're going to see?
Oh, well, when you ask this question during an oval race, the answer is usually always more than what's actually given in the booth. But I'm probably going to say at least 2 more. We'll probably see 2 more. What do you think?
Oh, well, since you said 2, now we're getting 4, right? That's the way it works, like you pointed out. So I'm going to say 2 as well. So we only get 4. But that's 49 laps with which to fight. Pinto and Krause still 9th and 10th. But things are starting to become a little less severe out there in terms of traffic. We are down to 17 cars on the lead lap. Costantini and Caruso controlling up front once again. As back underway with green flag racing at the Milwaukee Mile we go. You can see further behind the likes of Lichtenberg and Jacob Oster trying to make their way forward from deep in the mid-pack. For the most part, as Kenneth was saying earlier, all of these cautions interrupt the rhythm. Drivers trying to get back into it.
And the 3-way fight for 8th place is going to be pivotal. Once again, it's the championship contenders, Diogo Pinto and Philip Krause. And as Sam Keitzert, the fellow red line car, is in front from P8, it's allowing Pinto to get a move and several looks down the inside. Krause can see it happen, but Pinto has become the aggressor since the restart. It didn't take him long to take his IR18 to the inside, and as Krause gets backed up off turn 4, here comes Pinto trying to fill the space in turn 1.
And this is where the teammates can help, right? They'll just be mirror driving in effect. Krause is going to try and box out Keuter, but you could see, had to lift off, lost a whole bunch of momentum. Here goes Pinto back to the inside. Krause inches away from the left rear of Keuter. It allows Pinto to sequence his way on through. 45 laps to go next time by at the line for these drivers. And you can see in some ways, there's some concern, there's some frustration on Krause's face. What's he going to do as he takes a deep breath and resets?
Well, remember, Sam Keitzert is one of the poorer red line cars in the point standings. He's only 6th, which is to say how good they've been over the course of the campaign. But as of lately, he's been the helper. He's been the assistant, the wingman, if you will, to help his teammates succeed. And in this moment is where he's starting to think, all right, if there's a way I can hold off Phil Krause, help my teammate get a little more in front, that could help him get away in the championship lead. Now is where Keitzert fights on the outside. Krause is trying to get that right rear to hang on off turn 4, but the flat banking is not helping the Florida native. He goes back to the inside in turn 1.
And this is where you say, yeah, that right side, it's really having to work hard. Sam Keuter got a wobble. Phil Krause runs into the back of him. His front wing may now blink back into existence, but is there side pod damage at the end of the day? We'll see if there's going to be word over the radio. He's talking to Alexander Van der Sant right now and trying to figure out what to do. But this is exactly what I think the private label team Hype knew they would be up against if they were around a whole handful of these red line machines. Costantini once again has re-established that gap up front as the field has stretched itself out under green flag condition.
Yeah, those INDYCARs are putting in mirror image laps, 22 threes at the line, and there's a bit of the damage there on Kraus. He is okay for the most part. It may be a slight dent, but he is obviously getting frustrated. That's the last thing that he wants to see after what happened on the opening sector of the race where he got involved in a crash, and now here where he's only seeing his championship competitor dive further out of reach. He finally gets by Sam Kuitscher for 9th, and he survives another bullet. But Kraus has to play defense. Kuitscher back to the inside in turn 1.
At the end of the day, this is what Pinto wants. He wants Kraus to be frustrated, to burn the Firestone tires up just a little bit. And so now, past, mental reset once more for Kraus. Target the gap up front. It's now 7/10. He's got to try and close all, as Kuitscher's going to try his own little slide job. Big wiggle there. It's 45 points as it sits right now between 44 of Pinto, the 99 of Kraus. The magic number, just a reminder, is 49. If Diogo Pinto can get anywhere above a 49-point lead, he gives himself an unassailable points total, race control permitting. It's not going to sound like a much at this point, Kenneth, but all it's going to take is one slip up here, right? We saw with Jacob Oster slightly earlier on one of those restarts, right? On either side, the margins are so fine.
They're so slim, and you don't really want to force yourself into a mistake. But the good news here is that Pinto and Kraus don't find themselves with a lot of traffic around them. Other than Sam Kuitscher, who just got passed by Kraus about 2 laps ago, you have to go back at least, you have to go another second and a half to find Elliot Veyron, who's the next sitting car in 7th at the back end of this train, led by Florian Lebigra, who sits in 4th. So the gaps are starting to increase, and the attrition is hitting the amount of gaps that we're starting to see over the course of these green flag runs. So Pinto, who hasn't had the overall fastest car of the night, may not gain any more points as long as, you know, these guys continue to run as well as they have.
Talked already about how a whole handful of drivers are racing from different facilities to their own, Florian Lebigra included. He's racing from Thibaut Casabon's rig. Thibaut Casabon, of course, races for RAG Roman Grosjean Esports, partnering up with Vitality for 2024. So very cool to see that camaraderie, different teams, yes, but recognizing that everyone in this community can do with a helping hand once in a while. So a slightly different webcam perspective from Florian Lebigra in that Team Redline 02, who's had a very solid race up there in 4th, the best of the Redline cars by far, and it has not been close. He's been juggling this dual program as well, right? Qualifying for the Porsche Esports Super Cup for 2025 through the Contender Series on Saturdays, while also racing with us on Thursdays, to switch from a Dallara IR18 to one of those Cup cars. Very, very different, and so I think finally now with that Contender Series behind, we're finally starting to see exactly the speed that he can bring to this open wheel car. As Kraus goes on the offense to Diogo Pinto, let's just point out one thing. This is the first race on the speedways, Kenneth, where it's not PLTH, private label Team Hype, that are looking like the likely winners.
And the biggest thing that helped private label Team Hype on the ovals that they dominated was strategy. We had enough of a long green flag run in those 2 races, specifically Iowa and Gateway, that happened about 2 weeks ago. Because we had those runs, it allowed private label Team Hype to execute the undercut strategy as Kraus dials at the bottom on 8th place Diogo Pinto here in turn 3. This battle will continue all the way off until the front straightaway. But because of the long runs, private label Team Hype was able to use the strategy to their benefit and then unleash their speed. Because we haven't seen long green flag runs and plenty of yellows, it has interrupted what could be a private label Team Hype strategy that gets them to the front. It's only made their journey more difficult. Added on to whatever Kraus has been dealing with all race, almost feels like a dark cloud, an omen, if you will. It only gets tougher, and here he goes back to the inside in turn 1.
And I think the fact that, you know, Kraus has been able to make some moves deep in the pack, but has been struggling the higher up the field you get. Look at Pinto just continuing to roll the high line and hold on to the spot. You know, Rob Malechka struggled to make some inroads as well from 6th. That's where he qualified. So, you know, the fact that neither of the main private label Team Hype contenders, both of whom have won oval races this season, have really been able to fight at the front, I think tells us a lot about how important clean air is for those that are able to take advantage of it. Kraus, I gotta say, you can see there, he's trying, he's knocking at the door, but with 29 laps to go, Diogo Pinto is proving to us that he's really been able to adapt well. Kraus is going to surprise him though. Alongside at the line, Pinto will hold on into turn number 1.
And look at how this deep in the race, Arjuna, you're seeing a switch of line ideas between these two. At the early jump of this race, Kraus was that man on the high side. Pinto was faithful to the bottom, but as this track has gotten more energy down on the inside and more rubber, it's in turn gotten more slick. So everyone's starting to migrate several lanes up the racetrack, and it's helping Pinto now, while Kraus, who's trying to be aggressive, has been diving it down low. Could this be the clearing move in 1 and 2? I think he's got it off of turn 2. Yes, he does. Philip Kraus to P8.
And this is where Pinto's going to make the right decisions at the right time. That's him just putting the pressure, the mental mind game being played out here at Milwaukee. He knows at this point, he's shown Kraus he can hold him off for an indeterminate amount of time until Kraus got desperate. Going over to Nashville, knowing that the points lead is looking not insurmountable, but as large as Diogo Pinto could hope for, I think now he will settle in. 26 laps to go and just get to the end with some teammates behind him. Remember, Sam Coita and Gustavo Ariel not going to push him. It's now on Phil Kraus. How far forward can he get? Can he pass Elliot Veyron? Can he pass Rob Malechka? Can he bring the gap under 40 points?
Well, Veyron and Malechka have been fighting side by side as of late because Veyron is starting to get on the red button, right? He's trying to make a position and he's nearing the outside wall, and so is Malechka. They've been all over the place, and that only will help Kraus. Now that he's single file and in mostly clean air, he can start to work more on his more individual run versus trying to worry more about what Diogo Pinto is doing on the racetrack. And as these two continue to go side pod to side pod, Kraus is only gaining time. The last lap by, the two drivers in 6th and 7th, 3/10 slower than Kraus on the racetrack.
And remember, Sam Coita was helping Diogo Pinto slightly earlier. This is where Rob Malechka can maybe help Phil Kraus slightly, right? If he can pass both of these drivers and then start to look forward to Dan Amor. If we get a late race restart here, who knows? Phil Kraus is not maybe looking at a race win. He's thinking about a top 5 and the points that are associated with that. Once again, Veyron's going to shimmy down low. He's got so much experience on the road courses, Veyron, in the real world, in open wheelers. Ovals are a little bit more of a blank slate for him. He's still learning as he goes. To get that podium at Indianapolis really boosted his confidence, and it's helping him to make some of these attempted moves. They're not all sticking by any means, but he's definitely putting the pressure on. Look at the gap that's built up to Dan Amor. Once more to the inside, but Phil Kraus within a couple of car lengths out of turn 2.
You just don't have the grip down there anymore, and give credit to Kraus for staying adamant to the inside lane just because it's been so tough to get the throttle in off the corner. You're seeing guys getting down to that white line, nearly that yellow curb, to find a little more grip on the left side tires, get themselves a little more rotation off the corner, but if they can't get it down, then they can't get it down, and that's only going to lose you a lot more time, especially if you're in a fight with another driver. And how about this? Jose Soria, who finished on the podium last week at Laguna Seca, was super elated to get his first podium of the year after what was a really, really rough season up until this point. And Brendan Lichtenberg, who's also had a rough season, them going side by side. It's been great to see them, and this is inside the top 15. So good points on the line for them too.
That bottom of the screen, there was a big old slide behind Lichtenberg for Soria, who Soria has competed in a whole handful of iRacing Indy 500s, usually of the fixed variety. And we've seen him over the last 3 years just get more and more confident on the ovals. Top of the screen, you just saw an outrageous move from Phil Kraus. Definitely assisted by his teammate Rob Malechka, that's for sure. And he's now got 6th position to himself. These are valuable points. That now championship lead that Pinto has will be cut below 40. Veyron's going to drive it down low, box out Malechka through turn 4, almost hip checks him into the wall. I think they got away with that. Confirmation, right side of the screen. Phil Kraus, 37 points back and starting to sniff for top 5.
But his heart almost skipped there for a moment as Veyron sent it into turn 3. There were probably some inches between the front end of Veyron's car and the rear end of Kraus's machine. It got so close, but thankfully Malechka has held Veyron off, and Kraus now can focus on his own run. It only is going to get tougher to catch up to the competition just because none of them are fighting with drivers on the racetrack. but keep in mind the leaders are approaching and have already started to blend in to the lap traffic scene. It's not a lot of cars, it's about 2 or 3 max, but as the field continues to envelop the lap machines, it's only going to get tougher, and it may back up guys like Phil Kraus down the run.
To quote Talladega Nights, shake and bake. That was the message sent between Rob Malechka and Phil Kraus there. Slingshot in effect. Jeff Drake in the Powerslide Motorsports number 75. He's having a fun little fight with Gustavo Ariel down in 11th and 12th positions, with Jacob Oster not too far behind them in the Team I5G number 16. Remember, Gustavo racing from the New Orleans Motorsports Park. Slightly unfamiliar rig for him to add to the challenge of a slightly unfamiliar track. He's gained 6 positions by just staying out of trouble and continuing to set solid lap times, even if he's not lighting the time charts alight by any means. Just look at how he's able to hold on the outside, able to frustrate Jeff Drake. He has to settle back into line for the time being.
And I'm sure Jeff Drake really wants to be in this situation and is happy that he's here, because he's only had 1 top 10 this season, and that was courtesy of Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway. But this, as it tracks now, if we stay like this with under 13 laps to go, will be his 2nd best finish of the 2024 season. So Jeff Drake definitely wants a high note at the end, and obviously when you see a car like Ariel in front, you want a little more. Drake is going to send it down into turn 1, and I think he also likes that the battle for P9 is, or the battle for 10th, it looks like that's a lap car that Kreitzer's getting by, will slow him down just a little bit. So it will help Jeff Drake just a tiny bit when we get down to the run.
Katia, I do believe, him and Eduardo Leo, the only 2 cars still circulating, laps down, 17 cars left on the lead lap. Phil Kraus has gained 20 positions so far. Remember, qualifying ban, had to start from the very back, and he's done basically all that he could. Remember, involved in an incident in the early stages, lost part of the front wing. He's been involved in a couple of close shaves as well. He needs a caution right now. He needs to be able to be given that chance to try and close up to those front 5, because I think as it stands right now, time's running out, 10 laps to go at the line. Phil Kraus is going to have to settle for 6.
And Arjuna, this seems to be the comeback drive from Kraus that we expected out of him at Laguna Seca last week, and probably one that he wanted to have at Laguna Seca, where he started in the midway portion of the field, had some troubles there with Thomas Shimon getting into the rear end during the corkscrew, and several other close calls with Xavi Ros. But Kraus tonight has done what he couldn't do at Laguna Seca, is move through the field despite all the obstacles, play smart, be aggressive when it matters the most, and be conservative. And Kraus has done all of that to give him at least a fighting chance at the championship, and he's catching up to this driver right here, the UK native of Dan Amor, who went flipping last week at Laguna Seca, will recover for a top 5 if this race continues to track down as is.
And he was leading in our first oval race as well at one point before getting tangled up in an incident. Slightly self-inflicted, yes, but I think that was his inexperience showing. Apex Racing Academy, of course, where the Apex Racing team looked to develop the young prodigies. The likes that have come out of the Academy program in the past include the likes of Sebastian Jobe, Kevin Ellis Jr., Zach Campbell and Kevin Ellis Jr. went from being oval racers, converted into some of the very best in the world of road racing on iRacing. So never say never with these young drivers. They will just continue to develop, and often in unexpected ways, going and doing things that maybe you traditionally would not have expected. 6 to go at the line. Costantini is leading comfortably. Haven't talked much about him, and probably for good reason. He's hoping we'll keep it like that as well. The 66 machine has only finished inside of the top 10 3 times this season, top 5 once. And for a driver that entered the championship, Kenneth, as a potential championship contender, and to some, maybe even a championship favorite, this is the statement he's been waiting to make.
He has been marinating in this run, it seems like all night long, where he hasn't encountered trouble, he hasn't encountered any real proposition or resistance on the racetrack. He has been stellar from the drop of the green flag tonight, and as I mentioned it, the last 4 races, 3 of them top 10s. He's starting to ramp up that consistency and put it into Costantini mode, the one that we've been accustomed to seeing over his illustrious sim racing career. And with under 3 laps to go at the start-finish line, Costantini can finally relish in a victory this year.
I'm going to say something, and you can blame the curse of the commentator if it transpires. We haven't finished the oval race under green flag conditions yet. Could we finally break the curse? We'll have to see some of these battles. Brendan Lichtenberg's got Jose Soria lunging up the inside. This is for 14th and 15th positions. Kenneth, you knew exactly where I was going with that, didn't you?
I knew it exactly, and I've been doing that for years on end as a commentator, where I always bring up that caution flag and then it comes out, and as we're seeing more treacherous battles on the racetrack, and it very well could be the case as Pinto dives up the inside on Malechka, that will help his chance of defending the championship next week at Nashville Superspeedway, because as Kraus gained a lot of time, Pinto has lost the positions, therefore all of the points, so he's trying to make things back up slowly but surely here on Malechka. And then back where Elliot Bayron was, I believe he picked up some front wing damage, so he's just nursing the race car until the end, while Jeff Drake and Gustavo Ariel have been going at it as Costantini takes the white flag.
And this, I think, is just indicative of Malechka's struggles on the tires, but up front, I can't wait for this expression of emotion. The season of disappointment, the summer of disappointment, it's finally come to a close. The statement that Michele Costantini's been waiting for. Victory lane here in America's legendary oval in the INDYCAR Buttkicker iRacing Pro Series.
What a drive by Costantini, and a race where finally he does not encounter any type of drama. Had a fast car in qualifying, had his teammate in Caruso behind, and Coanda puts on a clinic here at Milwaukee. 1-2 finish for both of those drivers, a wonderful job, and Costantini, I mean, that look said it all there as he crossed the start-finish line. A win that he's been waiting for ages, and he can finally celebrate as an INDYCAR Buttkicker iRacing Pro Series winner.
I think this interview is going to have some emotions as well, and this burnout's going to have some meaning to it. Michele Costantini at one point wasn't sure whether he would compete in this series. It's early in the morning for him. It's been an emotional roller coaster to say the very least, but a moment he's been waiting for, this Buttkicker winning moment, as he celebrates and turns it down in victory lane. Great day for Coanda as well. Jordan Caruso grabbing that second place, and really for a team that have not made their impression on victory lane so far this year, it's been a while, but they've finally been able to do so. 1 and 2 for the purple and orange. Costantini leading his teammate Caruso as we finally finish one of these speedway races under green flag conditions. Luke McEwen, the sole representative for the Apex Racing team, third, and a very well-earned podium to say the very least. Florian Lebigra leads the red line contingent, fourth at the end of the day for him. Dan Amor up in fifth, just fends off the challenge from Phil Kraus in the closing stages, who makes his way forward 20 positions to move his way up to sixth at the end of the day. Diogo Pinto, Rob Malechka, 27,000 split them at the line as Pinto holds on. Poiter and Drake make up the rest of the top 10. And then only 6 more cars scored on the lead lap. Gustavo Ariel, Elliot Bayron, Jacob Oster, Jose Soria, Brendan Lichtenberg, and David Toth. Josh Chin's 1 lap down. 2 laps down for Eduardo Leo and Yusi Katia before you get to the graveyard. No other way to put it. Ricardo Rico, Jason Brophy, Javi Ross, Michael Johnny, Thomas Shimon, Adam Crane, Sota Muto, Jaden Munoz. Did see our fair share of cautions today, I think it is fair to say. And well, a couple of those drivers not even getting 3 laps in. 27 started, 16 finish on the lead lap. And this track, known for its toughness, did not relent. Down in victory lane, though, one driver that's been waiting for this winning moment is Michele Costantini, standing by with Kenneth Bueno.
It's a track that takes a lot of relentlessness to finish well at, and Michele Costantini, probably the most relentless driver of the field. Michele, welcome to victory lane for the first time. How meaningful is this win coming now, especially after the trials and tribulations you faced this year?
Of a season it's been, and how relieved I am of getting to victory lane at least once this season. You know, I worked very, very hard this week. I feel like we had a really good car, but yeah, honestly, it just feels so good after such a terrible season.
And this is also a product of your team, Coanda, getting hard to work over the last 3 weeks, especially in qualifying, to give you guys at least a solid start for these kinds of races. What has the chemistry and the teamwork been like in this series over the last 3 weeks to give you guys such great qualifying efforts and to give you guys winning cars today?
Yeah, lately we've actually been pretty good in quali for sure. I think we got pole for the last 4 races or something. But yeah, it was a good effort again, and I have to thank everyone in the team and everyone else also who supported me and helped me throughout this season and prior. So yeah, thanks to everyone.
Well, I know over there in Italy it's early in the morning, but the celebrations will ring in until the early morning hours and further down the line. Michele, congratulations on your first win of the 2024 season, and we are happy to see you at Nashville Super Speedway next week for the championship finale.
Thank you very much.
Michele Costantini wins it for Team Coena. His teammate, Jordan Caruso, comes by in second. Jordan, well, last week was rough. After the corkscrew this week, you have a much calmer outing. What was it like from your view?
Yeah, honestly, just a massive thanks to Michele. He put in the work into the car. I was not expecting to be this far up because in practice I was quite a bit off Michele, but he was just rapid. So yeah, massive thanks to him. And yeah, he really deserved the win after the championship he's had. But yeah, pretty boring race, but I guess it was, yeah, it's good when you're in second. So yeah.
Well, sometimes the uneventful races turn out to be some of the best ones, consistency-wise. This is your best finish on an oval this season, which is to note. Now you guys head into Nashville Super Speedway, final race of the season. What do you guys try to put forward there to try to get another win?
Yeah, I mean, just got to put the work in during the week. Honestly, like still on the oval side, I don't really know what I'm doing. So, but yeah, we've got Michele there and a few of the other guys who are good with the setup. So yeah, I'm just gonna try to, I guess, put in another solid quali lap and hopefully a good result, and yeah, see where we end up.
Well, hey, it's all coming together right now, which is always good to see. Jordan, congratulations on the P2 tonight. We'll see you at Nashville Super Speedway next week.
Thanks, guys.
Jordan Caruso finishes in second, and another uneventful race for Luke McEwen, who joins us now in third place. Luke, you are the only Apex Racing car in the podium here. We know that Peter Berryman, your teammate, unfortunately couldn't make it tonight. We hope that he's feeling better. But how would you describe your race tonight from Milwaukee?
Yeah, I mean, as you said, it was quite uneventful, but had the car for pole, but just didn't hook it up, and that could have made obviously a big difference because it was due to the conditions. I think it was just really hard to overtake basically, and our long run pace was probably our advantage over the guys in front, and obviously there's a lot of caution, so just couldn't quite get to that end of stint pace. But yeah, overall, I'm pretty chuffed with a podium, yeah.
And much like Caruso, this is your best finish on an oval thus far. Nashville Super Speedway next. What challenges do you anticipate in that finale?
I mean, I've never really driven the track. Never really driven most of the oval track, so I don't really know how it's going to play out. Yeah, it's just a massive learning curve basically every time we go to one of these oval tracks. So luckily we've got a trainer in the team to give lots of pointers and help with the setup. It's really helpful. Otherwise, I'm sure I wouldn't be getting these results without him.
Well, Luke, we appreciate the time. Congratulations on the podium finish tonight. We'll see you at the finale next Thursday.
Thank you. I'll see you then.
Michele Costantini, Jordan Caruso, Luke McEwen is your top three after Milwaukee tonight.
I love how Luke gives the credit to his teammate as well, the FIA F4 Esports Global Champion, of course. Let's not forget Luke McEwen, still making sure to recognize the help that his teammates have given him, as he is now sixth in the points. However, it is now down to the top three. Diogo Pinto, Phil Kraus, and Eduardo Leo. Those are the three drivers that mathematically have a chance. Let's be honest, Eduardo Leo, he's out of it. Realistically, Diogo Pinto shows up and puts Eduardo Leo out of contention. For Phil Kraus as well now, the question is going to be, what does race control deem about that incident that we saw down in the three wide moment with Diogo Pinto? Because Kenneth, he could as well enter next week, either with, again, a qualifying ban, a points penalty that drops him more than 50 points behind, or maybe even something more severe.
He's going to have to pray that race control does nothing about the incidents tonight, but he's been strong all season long, and like Pinto said last week after winning at Laguna Seca, I think it's going to be close between me, Philip, and Ed. Him, Philip, and Ed, your top three in the championship as we head to Nashville Super Speedway, and this track is always a ton of fun to drive. It's a concrete oval, really rough on the tires, one that you got to be really accurate in the placement of your race car with. this track will surely give us a stunning finale for the title.
It's where Alex Palou wrapped up his championship at the end of the 2024 NTT INDYCAR Series. It's fitting for us to crown our champion as well. And can Diogo Pinto strum one more masterpiece? Or is it time for Phil Kraus to turn up the pressure and for something special to happen at Nashville? That's all left to come on the iRacing Esports Network. One final race in front of us, 114 laps to crown our champion. But the fan vote did not disappoint. It changed the complexion of the championship in ways that no one could expect. We're down to the top 3. And it's time to crown our champion. For the team behind the scenes at iRacing, thank you so much for joining us. Kenneth Bueno, Arjuna Kankipati, looking forward to our championship showdown from the Nashville Superspeedway.
Dirt Racing 24 is available now.